poverty rate for Black families is more than double white families.
These are matters of behavior, matters of choices. There's nothing stopping anybody Black from succeeding in America.
You point blank said you don't believe there's systemic racism in America. Just listen to these
Not
stats.
anymore.
Not anymore.
Yeah, not anymore.
Black Americans are underrepresented in high-paying jobs compared to white and Asian Americans, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, the median incomes of Black families is almost $30,000 less than white families, and overall poverty rate for Black families is more than double white families. Black mortgage applicants are denied for loans more often than white, Hispanic, and Asian applicants, per the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. And the U.S. Census Bureau in 2021 found that 37.9% of white Americans 25 and older have college degrees compared to 28.1% of Black Americans in that same age range. So when you hear those stats, you don't believe that systemic racism is in America anymore. So what would you attribute these numbers to?
Oh, for crying out loud. Disparities do not mean systemic racism. Disparities mean disparities. For example, a Black married man has the same unemployment rate as do whites.
Now, that's interesting. I'm wondering, what is the correlation between marriage and employment? Maybe if a man is mature enough to get married, it means he is stable in his life and more likely to hold a job. I don't know. That's just a guess. Leave a comment below if you have an idea, because I'm really not sure about that one.
What is stopping a Black person from going to a college or university? The things that you mentioned are disparities. Tell me how these disparities are because of racism. You mentioned mortgage applications. It is true that Blacks are turned down at a higher rate for mortgages than whites. It's also true that Asians are turned down less often than whites. How do you explain that? How do you explain that Chinese Americans who were victimized by racism, in fact, they were the first nationality to be excluded by the Chinese Immigration Act. How do you explain that they have a higher net income than do whites? How do you explain that Japanese Americans have a higher household income than do whites? How do you explain that Korean Americans have a higher net income than do whites? How do you explain Nigerian Americans have a higher net income, household income than do whites? These are matters of behavior, matters of choices. There's nothing stopping anybody Black from succeeding in America. There are think tanks on the left, like the Brookings Institution, and on the right, like the American Enterprise Institute, and they both give the same formula for success. Finish high school. Don't have a kid before you're 20 years old. Get married first. Get a job. Keep that job. Don't quit it until you get another job. And I would add one more thing, and that is avoid the criminal justice system. You do those things, you will not be poor.
So how do you explain these disparities? You said disparities are disparities. What do you mean by that?
Well, if you decide not to go to college, then you say that Black people are not in college. If you make a decision not to do something that results in you having less income, how do you call that some sort of systemic racism? You might want to make an argument that people ought to change their behavior, that there should be a greater emphasis on education. For example, look at a graph of how much homework an average Black kid spends in high school per night compared to the average amount of homework a Hispanic kid does, compared to the average homework a white kid does, compared to the average homework an Asian American kid does. And it's night and day when you compare what Blacks do per night on homework versus whites or versus Asians. If you argue that there is a relationship between how hard you work and results, it seems to me you ought to be talking about why people aren't working harder rather than criticizing the disparate results that stem from that.
So are you saying that the reason why more Black people...
I don't know why. Honestly, Brittany, I don't know why this is complicated.
Oh, he's getting pissed. Larry doesn't understand why people keep looking for other reasons other than the obvious. Like work hard, go to school, act with integrity, and you'll do well in life. Make good decisions. Stop looking to blame others for your shortcomings.
What I'm saying is, in America, if you decide that you want to work hard, go to high school, graduate, and then go to a college or a junior college first, and then graduate, nothing will stop you. I mean, virtually every Fortune 500 company has some sort of diversity consultant or some sort of outreach program. They're all looking for to diversify their workforce. What's the evidence that corporate America somehow is discriminating against qualified black people? I went to law school, graduated in 1977. My roommate was an engineering student. He majored in computer engineering. He was recruited like a rock star. He was recruited like a high school prep star. He could do anywhere he wanted to. He could go anywhere he wanted to work. I ended up working at TRW, had a very long career. He had a study mate who was also black, and they both majored in computer engineering. And the study mate went to Procter & Gamble, had a very long, successful career. Corporations were lining up for them. Corporations are looking for qualified people, particularly people who are in STEMs, science, technology, engineering, and math. These are the high demand areas, and unfortunately, a large percentage of blacks aren't majoring in those areas. So if you're not doing the kinds of things that corporate America wants, don't be shocked when corporate America doesn't give you a job. I don't understand why this is complicated.
Do you think it's an equal playing field for all Americans, regardless of race, then, to achieve that American dream?
Brittany, it's not an equal playing field in your own house. I don't know if you have any siblings, but I doubt that your siblings are equally successful, even though you had the same parents, went to the same schools. What makes you think that we're supposed to have equal outcomes?
Well, that's what DEI is all about, equal outcomes. And if it's not, then it must be racist.
Is the NBA equal? 85, 95% or so of the players are black. I'd say the same thing about the NFL. Baseball has a substantial percentage of Latin ball players. How do you explain that? Is there some sort of systemic racism against white people who don't make it to the NBA? If you do not embrace math, you don't embrace science, you don't embrace the higher paying careers, you're not going to have a higher paid career.
To see a woke liberal academic get a taste of her own medicine, click here, and I will see you over there.